I'm kind of hoping this is one of those rare times where the movie that's getting created within this movie actually does get turned into a proper feature film all on its own, because I've got to be honest, it does look cool. Hello everyone and welcome to Rewind Reviews. In this video we are taking a look at a movie that I was really looking forward to, and that movie is The Fall Guy. Released in 2024 and loosely based on the TV series from the 1980s, The Fall Guy sees a down-and-out stuntman having to find the missing star of his ex-girlfriend's blockbuster film. Directed by David Leitch and written by Drew Pearce, the movie stars Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Hannah Waddingham, Winston Duke, Teresa Palmer, Matusi, Ben Knight, Adam Dunn, Stephanie Sue and Zara Michaels. Yes, you heard me correctly. The Fall Guy is based on a TV series that ran from 1981 to 1986 and starred Lee Majors and Heather Thomas. I haven't seen the TV series myself, and I'm going to be completely honest, up until I found out about this movie, I'd never even heard of it. So I don't think I'll be doing any comparisons in this one. This movie, The Fall Guy, as it stands, came out of absolutely nowhere for me. I didn't know what it was, I didn't know it was in development, I knew absolutely nothing about this whatsoever. And then one day I was browsing through my social feed and I saw a poster for it and I found out who was in it and I thought, ooh, that sounds interesting. So I looked into it a little bit further, I saw the trailer and I thought, you know what, that actually does look really cool. And it became a movie that I was really looking forward to. So release day came and I went to go and see this in IMAX format. I'll admit I did have a small panic attack because the movie hadn't actually started playing and it got about 20 minutes or so after the showing was supposed to have started. And the screen was just black and the lights hadn't gone out or anything, and even the people around me were all just kind of looking around thinking like, what's going on here? And I'm thinking, I really don't want to go through this again. It's happened to me before now, where I think it was Spider-Man Homecoming I went to go and see. I wanted to see that movie in IMAX and there was something wrong with the file. It had corrupted and the cinema screen, they just weren't able to show it in that format on that day and I wasn't able to go and see it and I was really disappointed. It's actually happened quite a few times. It's not fun. But after that, everything was working fine and I was able to see this movie. And yeah, not only did I have a good time with this movie, it was excellent. The Fall Guy is an action comedy that follows a stuntman called Colt, who after a near career-ending accident finds himself having to discreetly track down the lead star of a brand new sci-fi western movie being directed by his ex-girlfriend Jodie, all while uncovering a strange conspiracy and having to do his day job. The story, for all intents and purposes, is pretty simple and straightforward, but it does have its fair share of twists and surprises that you may or may not see coming. 50-50 for me, but having a simple premise for a movie like this, an action movie that prioritises both action and stunts, for me, that is not a negative. It doesn't need to be a complex story, it just needs to allow for the action to happen in a logical way, and that's what this movie does very well. To be honest, my only gripe with the story is more towards the third act. Yes, it was still fun and I was thoroughly entertained the entire time. I had a gigantic smile on my face the entire time. But I will admit it can go a little bit over the top, it can get quite chaotic as well. And I will admit there are some elements that are quite convoluted as well. And I'll also say that the overall direction that it does take during the finale of this movie was a bit of a surprise, but I will still say it was a load of fun. This is an action movie first and foremost. The story is really a backdrop to both the stunts and the performers. This movie, The Fall Guy, is a love letter to the profession, the craft and the design of stunts and the brave people who perform them. Stunt professionals, to quote pretty much everyone who's reviewed this movie, are the unsung heroes of the entertainment industry. These are professionals who basically put their lives on the line for people's entertainment, but they rarely get the recognition that they quite rightfully deserve. Stunts can often factor into some of the most iconic scenes in movie and TV history. Some stunts can be quite small and simple, and other stunts can be huge and technically complex. And yet they rarely get any meaningful recognition, especially within the movie industry. The Academy Boards are actually a really good example of this because for some reason, no matter how many times it's suggested or brought up, there is no category for stunt work or stunt professionals or stunt choreography or anything like that in the Oscars, in BAFTAs, in Golden Globes or any of the big awards ceremonies. And that's actually something that gets addressed in this movie as well. They actually bring it up. There's a scene where Ryan Gosling's character Colt actually gets asked whether stunts get Oscars and what sort of awards they get, and he basically just goes, no, we don't get anything. And that is something that I really do hope changes. I am somebody who has actively campaigned for something like that to happen at the Academy, even though I will fully admit I don't always agree with the Academy's decisions. But since this movie's release, I have seen an increase in support for it, whether that's from different media outlets or even other YouTubers. So maybe one day they will. It's been a long time coming and I hope it changes soon. They really deserve it. So, Let's get back to the review. When it comes to the action that is featured in The Fall Guy, as you'd expect, it is unbelievably good. Now, this is definitely toned down compared to most of David Leitch's previous movies. It is rated a 12A here in the UK, so it isn't a gore fest. But the artistry, the choreography, and the way it's all staged is both insane and fantastically well executed. There's a really good mix and variety of action and set pieces that highlight different techniques and different stunts that you can use in a movie in a really fun and creative way. I will admit there was a little bit of me that was questioning how much of it was real and how much of it wasn't, partly because it does feel like movies like Bullet Train, which did feel quite sleek and quite glossy. Plus they do use a few effects and a few enhancements here and there which actually don't look too bad. But I should never have questioned it. The amount of stunts in this film that they do for real is honestly impressive, and the filmmakers and actors do take pride in what it is that they've been able to do. From interviews with magazines and news outlets that focus on the stunts to the red carpet events where they're still doing some crazy things, they are worth a look. Plus the fact that the movie itself goes so far as to feature in the end credits, the scrolling credits, B-roll footage. It shows the stunt work, it shows all of the real stunts that were done on set, and it shows all the techniques and everything that they did to bring these stunts to life. It highlights everything that they actually did for real, and it is so good. Plus, I just want to quickly mention that there is actually a post-credit scene in this movie. It is quite fun, and it is definitely worth sticking around for. That B-roll footage actually cleared up any questions that I had about what was real and what wasn't, and I was impressed with what it is that they do in one sequence involving a chase and a truck. That sequence is amazing, and it might be my favourite bit of the entire movie. It's ridiculously over the top, but it is so good. I'm also really impressed by the fact that they actually managed to break a world record that was previously held by Casino Royale, and that is how many rolls you can do in a car. That's really cool, and it's something that both the stunt coordinators and the movie's director have talked about at length in multiple different interviews about how it is that they actually did it. All of the interviews that the people working on this movie have done throughout the entire marketing campaign, they are really worth a listen to. They are so insightful. There's actually a really fun sequence that takes place in a nightclub that sees one of the main characters getting drugged before this gigantic fight breaks out. But in a twist to what you normally see in a lot of these types of action sequences, you actually see everything from the drug person's perspective, and we get one of the most visually stunning sequences of the entire movie. It is so clever and creative, it is wonderful, and it leads to one of the funniest running jokes. What they've been able to do with The Fall Guy is absolutely fantastic, and this is a brilliant example of what it is that you can do for real in a movie with an amazing stunt team. And when it comes to the style that they've used for both the cinematography and the editing, I really did like it overall. I'm being a little bit nitpicky here, but there is one action sequence in this movie that was a little bit split on the editing choices that they actually made for it. We've got like this gigantic car chase and gigantic fight sequence that's all kicking off, and it's really good, it's excellent, and it keeps cutting away to this sequence in a karaoke bar. I understand what it is that they are going for and understand what it is that they are trying to show and portray. So I think that maybe I just need to rewatch that sequence, to be honest. I think that it does work overall. I was just a little bit confused why it kept cutting away from this incredible action sequence because of everything that they're showing in it, and then just going back to this karaoke bar, which again is a great sequence overall, and I do think that it is really well staged and well handled and well sort of plays out and everything, and the performances in both of those sequences are fantastic, but I was a little bit 50-50 on it overall, so maybe I just need to give that sequence another once over. But that is just in the one scene. The rest of it honestly is really good. There are some excellent editing choices, and I think that some of the sequences and how some of the editing choices are actually used is very creative and quite imaginative as well. But as I said, when it comes to the overall cinematography of this movie, I really did like a lot of what it is that they actually do in this movie. It is a good looking movie. It is a really good looking movie, and there's some excellent visuals, and I especially like what it is that they do with some one take sequences, which in a movie like this you would expect to be incorporated into some of the action sequences, but that's not really what it is that they do here. The most memorable one take sequences in this movie are not actually part of the action sequences. They are just kind of there, just kind of show what it is that's actually going on in these characters' day-to-day lives. So when it comes to Colt, for instance, there's a sequence where it just kind of like follows him around set, and you just sort of see what his day-to-day life is. And it's really clever and very well staged and very well choreographed as well. You get a glimpse of what his life is like and what it's like to actually work on one of these movies, both the sort of chaotic side and the more sort of calmer side as well. And I think that it is very effective overall. I really do like what it is that they've done here, and I do think that they are very well used. This might actually be the longest I think I've ever gone without talking about the actors or the characters, so let's get into that now. The Fall Guy boasts a proper all-star cast in this movie, and there's some pretty big names involved. The cast and their performances really help help elevate this movie a lot more and add a lot more charm to it as well. And that of course includes the two leads of this movie, Colt played by Ryan Gosling and Jodie played by Emily Blunt. That information alone should sell you on this movie. They are both absolutely fantastic. They work incredibly well together. The chemistry between them is perfect. So much so that you actually do buy into their relationship and you are rooting for them. Ryan Gosling, obviously with him playing the stuntman in this movie, he does need to get actively involved in some of the bigger action set pieces. And not only does he do that, but he gets involved way more than I thought he would. And for some reason I keep forgetting that Ryan Gosling played a stuntman in Drive too, so this is actually his second performance as a stuntman. Obviously with David Leitch being the director of this movie, it is to be expected that some of the actors would get a little bit more involved in some of the action sequences. He has gone on record in several different interviews where he has talked about what it is that he does expect from actors that do work on movies that he is directing or movies that 87 North are involved with. So it is definitely to be expected, but Ryan Gosling really does get properly involved in this movie, and as I said, he gets involved a lot more than I thought he would. Like, there's actually one sequence in this movie that's quite early on. It's one of the one-take sequences where I thought that there was a sneaky edit where Ryan Gosling leaves and the stunt double takes over. But as it turns out, and I've looked into the behind-the-scenes story for this, they don't do that. The entire sequence is Ryan Gosling, and yes, they drop Ryan Gosling 150 feet on wires. Now that is how you start a movie. He is genuinely excellent and he brings the right amount of drama and humour to this role. And when it comes to Emily Blunt in this movie, she is absolutely fantastic and clearly having a load of fun. Everyone is, to be fair. She is absolutely brilliant and keeps her character feeling grounded with a few speckles of humour thrown in as well. There is a lot of pressure that is put on her character throughout this movie because what it is that Jodie is actually doing in this movie is that this is the first time that she is actually directing a proper movie. She is directing a full-scale action sci-fi movie. And I really like how it is that they handle that sequence and what it is that they do to really sort of capture what it is that's going through her mind at any given moment through both the writing and Emily Blunt's performance. Plus, Jodie does get to have a throwdown all of her own and it is so much fun. Both Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt are perfectly cast in this movie. They really do capture the essences of both of these characters. They bounce off each other really well and there is some amazing chemistry between them. I was actually quite surprised to see Winston Duke in this movie as a character called Dan Tucker. I actually didn't know that he was a part of this, but what he does bring to the movie is really good overall. I think he gives a great performance overall. I think he's a welcomed addition to the cast and I really like the friendship and connection between his character and Ryan Gosling's character. I even really like the sneaky little 87 North logo that he sports on his jumpsuit in the latter half of the movie. Whoever's idea that was, nice touch. Among the other standouts for me is Hannah Waddingham as Gail Mayer, who's the agent and producer working on Jodie's film, who kind of reminds me of BB from Frasier. Like the rest of the cast, I thought that she was really good overall. And when it comes to the character, she is quite quirky. She's not the most likeable character, and that is kind of the point. But I like how that's levelled out with how serious she is about her job. She has a very pivotal role to play in this movie because she is the one who recruits Colt to go and search for the lead actor of this brand new movie, played by Aaron Taylor-Johnson. Aaron Taylor-Johnson was a bit of a surprise in The Fall Guy because he's playing a character called Tom Ryder, who's this huge, incredibly famous superstar with his own entourage and his face plastered over several adverts. He's not really in the movie that much, and I definitely think that they could have done a little bit more with him. He does feel a bit underutilised, and some of the bigger character moments with him do feel slightly glossed over. But even so, whenever he's on screen, he is absolutely fantastic and very over the top, and I love the decision that they made to make the character lean more into the douchier side of Hollywood superstars, with him even going so far as to claim that he does his own stunts. Heard that many times over the years, unfortunately. If you're not Tom Cruise or Jackie Chan, you need stunt doubles. Anyway, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, like everyone else in this movie, is absolutely fantastic, and I love what it is that he brings to this movie. Every single actor that does appear in this movie, I do think is doing a great job overall. I think that everyone is giving a great performance overall. From the people playing the actors, playing all the people behind the scenes, everyone is doing a fantastic job, and I love what everyone does here, including that dog. And when it comes to the soundtrack for this movie from Dominic Lewis, I think that it is good overall, and it is really suitable for this film. It's nothing special, and I don't think it's the most memorable soundtrack that I've ever heard, but I do think that it does have some really good moments, some really good cues and themes here and there, and I like how it does weave in I Was Made for Loving You by Kiss, but it's an alternate version by both Dominic Lewis and Youngblood. When I picked up on it, I thought it was really fun and it was quite catchy as well. There's actually quite a few memorable songs that are featured in this movie, including one that was a huge surprise for me and it put a gigantic smile on my face. There is a great selection of songs that are featured in this movie. I think that every single song that they have chosen does work very well within context of what it is that's going on. I think that each scene that all the songs are actually used in are really good. They're really great choices overall, and it helps liven what's going on screen. And I've got to be honest, hearing some of those songs in the cinema with that sound system was just awesome. The soundtrack is really good in this movie, and overall I do like what it is that they have done here. Overall, The Fall Guy is excellent. It's not perfect, but it is a good time. The cast and the performances are really good, believable and funny, with some great timings, chemistry and a willingness to get stuck in during the action scenes. I like the story and how it manages to balance the action, humour and romance appropriately. The comedy is funny, the romance is surprisingly well handled and believable, and the action, of course, is absolutely fantastic. It's shot well with some brilliant visuals and cinematography, and the editing is mostly top-notch too. The soundtrack overall is good, and the song choices are wonderful and suit each sequence really well. Where this movie lacks for me is a few characters that don't get enough attention. It can get a bit too over the top and convoluted during the finale, and me personally, there's a couple of editing choices that I'm a bit split on, but honestly, it is so much fun that it doesn't really bother me. I'd honestly say that this is worth a watch if you can. It's an extremely entertaining movie with likeable leads and some amazing stunt sequences. So I would definitely say that this is worth a trip to the big screen if you can, to go and see this movie for the full experience. This is a fantastic movie overall, and I love seeing that the stunt professionals that worked on this movie are getting the amount of attention that they so rightfully deserve. I really enjoyed this one. It's one of the best action movies of the year that I've seen so far, and I can't wait to check it out again. So with all that being said, my rating for The Fall Guy is an 8 out of 10. Now all we need is a movie about the other unsung heroes of the movie industry, the caterers. Seriously, the crew would starve without them. And we need one about the grips. Very important. Well, that is pretty much everything I want to say for this video. So if you have watched this video, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the notification button to keep up to date on everything that is going on here. If you have seen The Fall Guy, let me know down in the comments what you think about it. Plus, if you have any suggestions for any future Rewind reviews you would like to see me do, let me know down below. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. See you guys.